effect, and he said he was looking forward to seeing what expression of despair I would give him. I tightened my grip on the sword. He had finally shown his hand, but now that he knew my true identity, he could not be allowed to leave here alive. The moment that thought settled, I went on the offensive, and the real battle began. The intensity of our clash was enough to shake the dungeon itself. The tremors spread outward, and the other students felt the violent shaking. Azure Warrior was the first to react. She read it as a massive mana surge, and immediately ordered everyone to evacuate the dungeon at full speed. Then she turned and ran alone toward the dungeon's depths. She tracked the source of the mana disturbance and followed it. She found the entrance to the core zone before long. When she arrived, what she saw stopped her cold. A single figure was standing face to face with a monster, but this was nothing like any ordinary monster. Its frame was massive, and the aura pouring off it was something entirely different, something that shouldn't exist here. And when she made out the face of the figure standing against it, her heart slammed in her chest. While she stood there frozen, the Fire Dragon's lieutenant launched a ferocious killing blow straight at me, declaring that today would be the day I was erased from this world forever. Azure Warrior watched the black mist thickening around the attack, and her heart seized. This was a monster that no rank could handle, and I didn't seem to realize that the real danger had just arrived. The Fire Dragon's lieutenant suddenly activates a magic skill. Its body blurs, and it lunges straight at me in an instant. The next second, we are locked in a fierce close-quarters struggle. I realize this must be Yejina's divine dragon's blessing. To think it can push even a lieutenant-rank creature this far. The Fire Dragon's lieutenant sneers. The Sword Saint is ancient history. In its eyes, I am nothing but a self-proclaimed hero desperate to save the world, and in the end, I will just be throwing my life away for nothing. With those words, the Fire Dragon's lieutenant charges at me in a frenzy. It raises its claws, ready to finish me off in one strike. I do not move. I hold my ground without flinching. Its razor-sharp claws graze the tip of my nose. At the last possible moment, I swing my sword and slice off its claws in one clean cut. The sudden counterattack leaves both the Fire Dragon's lieutenant and Azure Warrior stunned. Blood gushes from the wound in an instant. Its body goes completely still. I made sure to cut deep enough to stop any regeneration. I know it in my heart. I was never a hero. Looking back on that war, so many comrades who fought by my side were lost. We gave everything we had. That peace was bought with blood. And yet, that peace lasted only 100 years before it began to crumble. I will not let that tragedy repeat itself. This fight is for the dear friends who once stood beside me, and for every descendant they left behind. This time I will protect this world, no matter what it costs me. My words drive the Fire Dragon's lieutenant into a complete rage. It charges at me like a beast unleashed, but the moment it gets close, I grab it by the head and slam it down. Pinned beneath my grip, the Fire Dragon's lieutenant loses all composure. It thrashes and shrieks, overwhelmed by fury and desperation. It cannot accept this, being stopped by someone who should have died long ago. No matter what, it refuses to admit defeat. But I am done talking. I activate the 8-sword style and unleash the technique, Crescent Pierce. As the blade descends, I whisper to myself, it's over. Struck by that fatal blow, the Fire Dragon's lieutenant's beast form shell begins to crack. Pieces fall away one by one. Its true form slowly emerges beneath, but the moment it is revealed, its flesh shatters and dissolves, until nothing remains, swallowed entirely by the air. The battle has barely ended when Azure Warrior calls out to me again. I hear her voice and turn around. She stares at me with wide, searching eyes and asks who I really am. At the same time, at the special A-rank gate, Abyssal Prison, Frost Warrior is giving her report to the Guildmaster. She confirms she has eliminated the monster claiming to be a lieutenant of the 6 dragons. Report done, she can't help but complain. Running back-to-back missions like this is going to kill her. She follows up with a suggestion: expand the team before everyone burns out. The Guildmaster tells her not to worry. A new candidate has already been found. He mentions that someone just took down the Fire Dragon's lieutenant, alone. Thunder God, standing nearby, cuts in. He heard about this already, but the records show no detectable mana, and the man is an outdated swordsman at that. He can't make sense of it. Something about this whole thing doesn't add up. The Guildmaster gives them both a direct order: go verify his strength in person, and if he proves himself worthy, they are authorized to invite him into Seraphim. Before the words even finish, Thunder God volunteers. He'll be the one to check. Frost Warrior eyes him with amusement. Clearly he just wants to dodge the paperwork. Thunder God pretends not to hear her and smoothly changes the subject. He turns toward the remaining monsters still scattered across the field, his gaze sharpening. Without hesitation, he launches Grand Thunder Blast. The shockwave erupts, and every monster in the area is wiped out in an instant. He scoffs, muttering that these small fries are child's play. With the monsters cleared, he sets off, eager to see just how strong this mystery swordsman really is. By the time Thunder God gets moving, Azure Warrior and I are already back at the Mage Academy training ground. Seeing the confusion written all over her face, I decide to tell her everything. I tell her the truth. I am the reincarnated Sword Saint, and that the 6 dragons have returned, secretly plotting a ritual to summon the divine dragon. Azure Warrior freezes on the spot. I can see her struggling to process everything I just said. I say nothing and wait quietly by her side. After a long silence, she lets out a slow breath and admits, nothing else could explain what has been happening. After turning it over in her mind, she chooses to believe me. Not only that, she steps forward and offers to fight the 6 dragons alongside me. She says she wants to protect this world just as much as I do, She can't just stand by and do nothing. Watching her conviction, I can't help but think of my pink-haired companion from long ago. I'm more certain than ever. She truly is descended from my dearest friend. Her mana aptitude, her raw talent, the fire in her core. It is all strikingly reminiscent of my old companion. Azure Warrior then asks what I plan to do next. I'm honest with her. Just the two of us stand no chance against the 6 dragons, let alone the divine dragon. To protect this world, we need more reliable allies. Just like the 4 great heroes once fought side by side. She murmurs quietly, allies as powerful as her great-grandmother? Then her eyes light up. She brings up Seraphim. That group might be exactly what we need. She explains that Seraphim is an elite unit built around the guild's S-rank members. Her overseas mission was carried out as a Seraphim candidate student. She adds that Seraphim's members are considered the most powerful mages alive today. Hearing this, I feel a genuine sense of awe. So this era has its own great warriors after all. If we can stand alongside these new generation heroes, our chances will be far greater, and the tragedy of the past will not have to happen again. Our odds of victory would rise dramatically. Azure Warrior smiles and adds that a few members have rather unique personalities, but as long as we explain the situation clearly, they should come around. She hasn't even finished speaking when every nerve in my body goes taut. Danger. Without a second thought, I throw myself in front of Azure Warrior. I take the sudden attack head on, shielding her from every bit of it. I call out toward the source. Looks like we've got a visitor. As the dust settles, Thunder God strides forward slowly, his eyes scanning me with quiet scrutiny. He admits he didn't expect much, figured I was all hype and no substance. But the way I just blocked that attack, maybe there's something to this after all. Azure Warrior recognizes him immediately, her expression snapping to full alert. She quickly tells me, this is Thunder God, an S-rank powerhouse from the guild, and one of the world's top lightning mages. More importantly, he is one of Seraphim's core members. Thunder God skips the pleasantries and cuts straight to it. Did I really solo the Fire Dragon's lieutenant? He adds with a touch of pride that he already dealt with one of those so-called lieutenants himself. In his eyes, I'm just an ordinary guy. He flat out doesn't believe I could have pulled that off alone. He tells me to draw my sword. He wants a demonstration. The words barely leave his mouth before he fires off a skill, barely giving me any time to prepare. Azure Warrior recognizes it on the spot and cries out, that's Lightning Rush. I can clearly see the alarm on her face. After all, this is a spell designed to take down flying dragons and other massive monsters, not people. Thunder God makes his terms clear. Take this hit, and he'll sign me up as a Seraphim candidate. Fail, and he'll write me up as an overhyped nobody in his report. I accept the challenge without hesitation. Just as the technique is about to slam into me, I activate the 8-sword style. The technique's 6-petal burial erupts from my blade. A blinding barrage of sword strikes surges straight toward Thunder God. Thunder God is caught completely off guard. In that opening, Azure Warrior slips quietly behind me. The next second, our two forces collide with a thunderous crash. Azure Warrior gasps. He actually neutralized Thunder God's skill like it was nothing. That's incredible. Thunder God raises an eyebrow, a look of genuine interest crossing his face. I think to myself, Thunder God is the real deal. A mage of his caliber would have been rare even 100 years ago. He is without a doubt a rare talent worth cultivating. So I take the initiative and invite him to join me as a partner. Thunder God blinks, clearly caught off guard by the invitation. Then he laughs, impressed that I blocked his attack with nothing but a sword. He slings an arm around my shoulder and says that line should have been his to deliver. I smile and call him out. He wasn't even trying back there. That flashy move was just a disguised mid-tier spell. Thunder Spear dressed up to look dangerous. If he had gone all out, this whole area would be a crater. A mage of his caliber is genuinely rare to come across. Thunder God waves it off and says I'm the impressive one here. He openly admits my strength and talent are on par with S-rank mages. He follows up with a direct invitation, join Seraphim. I take the opportunity to negotiate. Can Azure Warrior join as well? She is already a Seraphim candidate after all. It only makes sense. But Thunder God shakes his head without hesitation and turns me down flat. He says he has reviewed Azure Warrior's combat record. Her mana doesn't measure up to Seraphim standards, and she lacks my swordsmanship. He even says it outright. She is a strictly inferior version of everyone already on the team. In his opinion, she simply does not qualify. Thunder God finishes and turns to Azure Warrior. Surely she knows this herself. I watch Azure Warrior lower her head in silence. I can feel the hurt she is carrying. Back at the academy, she had always carried a quiet confidence in her abilities, but watching me clash with Thunder God just now, she couldn't even keep up with the pace of it. She must be feeling just how far she still is from Seraphim's level. But I know the truth, she simply hasn't awakened her hidden gift yet. I push back immediately. The battles ahead will absolutely require Azure Warrior. Thunder God thinks I'm exaggerating. He argues that anything Azure Warrior can do, he can do just as well. I shake my head. Even someone as strong as him has limits. There is one area in particular where Azure Warrior can surpass even him. Hearing that, Azure Warrior is so flustered she could have disappeared into the floor. Thunder God lets out a helpless sigh, his expression turning serious. He tells me that every year, over 1,000 mages lose their lives on missions. Even after the Sword Saint and the 4 great heroes drove back the 6 dragons a century ago, the gates and the monsters never truly disappeared. Every investigation, every subjugation, someone always pays the price. Thunder God continues, Seraphim exists for a reason. Rank mages like them are meant to be on the front line, so those who aren't ready don't have to march to their deaths. Having said all that, Thunder God turns the question back on me. Knowing all of this, do I still want to push for Azure Warrior? To him, sending someone like her into battle is just sending her to die for nothing. I don't hesitate for a second. My answer hasn't changed. I say it clearly and firmly. Azure Warrior's talent is S rank. Her ability is S rank. Azure Warrior is left speechless by my words. After a long pause, she speaks, quietly telling me Thunder God is right. She should stay at the academy and train. In the middle of our argument, I sense it. Another powerful presence closing in fast. The next second, Frost Warrior steps into view and immediately sides with Thunder God. The short-haired young woman radiates a bone-chilling cold from head to toe. The freezing aura hits like a wall, as if the very air around her has turned to ice. Azure Warrior recognizes her immediately and calls out her name, Frost Warrior. Thunder God grins. Didn't expect these two to know each other. Frost Warrior's voice is flat and even. They're just old acquaintances, nothing more. She then turns to me, her expression going cold and measured. She says, since I'm so insistent, bring Azure Warrior along on the next investigation mission. They will evaluate her capability firsthand. Thunder God waves that off immediately. Too much trouble. I jump in and agree. There's a faster way to settle this. I propose a 2-on-2 duel. Azure Warrior and I against the two of them. Frost Warrior raises an eyebrow, her voice taking a hard edge. I have some nerve looking down on them. She warns me not to assume S-rank mages are all talk. They are not easy opponents. I smile and assure her, no disrespect intended. This is simply the fastest way to prove Azure Warrior's worth. Frost Warrior considers it briefly, then agrees. If they're going to do this, it should be at the guild headquarters training arena. After all, S-rank mages fighting at full strength would devastate anything nearby. Thunder God immediately agrees. A duel, another method, doesn't matter to him. What he truly wants is a real fight with me, a proper conclusion. I agree without hesitation. I turn to Azure Warrior beside me, my gaze full of encouragement. I tell her quietly, she is far stronger than she thinks. She should never sell herself short. I ask her, will she trust me, fight beside me, and prove what she is capable of? Azure Warrior is moved by my belief in her. She tightens her fist and declares, she will fight with me. I smile, relieved and proud. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Azure Warrior turns to Thunder God and Frost Warrior and issues her own challenge. She will show them exactly what she is made of. Watching that fierce, unbreakable spirit, I nod again with quiet satisfaction. I make my position clear. Azure Warrior and I will take down both of these S-rank mages. They should start preparing themselves for defeat. Holding to our agreement, the four of us make our way to the Mage Association headquarters. Once inside the dueling arena, the system begins verifying each participant's identity. It announces that the duel will not begin until the defensive barrier has fully deployed. A crowd of mages has already gathered in the viewing area above. Most of them seem convinced the gap between the two sides is far too wide. The outcome, in their eyes, is obvious. Meanwhile, the association president sits behind his desk. He thinks to himself, no point debating who is stronger. One fight will settle everything. With the Six Dragons' resurrection now a certainty, every additional ounce of strength counts. He is genuinely curious just how much power the two of us hold. I stand in the arena and look up at the barrier slowly unfolding above us. Something stirs in me. Azure Warrior explains that barriers these days are mostly controlled mechanically. It takes time to set up, but the defensive coverage is reliable and stable. Frost Warrior picks up the thread. The pink-haired companion who once fought beside the Sword Saint had her own original defensive spell, a powerful one unlike anything else. For anyone who can't reach that level, machine-assisted barriers are good enough. I can't help but ask, so by that logic, a defensive mage who reaches that level would qualify for Seraphim? Frost Warrior shakes her head. Unfortunately, no one like that exists anymore. Before I can say another word, Thunder God cuts us off with obvious impatience. He tells us to stop talking and prove ourselves with action. I smile back at him. That is exactly what I intend to do. The barrier finishes deploying and the system announces the battle begins. All four of us step back simultaneously, settling into our respective positions. Thunder God makes the first move. He unleashes his signature technique, Radiant Thunder God Strike. It blasts toward Azure Warrior and me with overwhelming force. The crowd above erupts in shock. Even the usually composed association president leans forward in his seat, eyes fixed on the arena. I signal Azure Warrior to fall back. I'll handle this one. I activate Heaven's End Wind, and the force of it disperses Thunder God Strike completely. The crowd goes wild. Everyone is talking at once. Nobody recognizes me, and nobody has ever seen a technique like that before. Thunder God sees this and immediately shifts tactics. He condenses his lightning into the Thunder King blade and moves in for close combat. I find myself genuinely impressed. Shaping raw lightning into a blade takes extraordinary talent. I draw my sword and meet him head on. The two of us trade blows in a furious exchange, neither gaining the upper hand. Neither of us can break through. At that moment, Frost Warrior joins the fight. She launches Ice Lance Barrage, sending a volley of ice lances driving straight toward me, blocking Thunder God's blade while evading Frost Warrior's lances. I can't help but think, Seraphim truly lives up to its name, fielding two fighters of this caliber at once. Seizing a gap between their attacks, I drive my sword straight into the ground. I activate Earth Shatter Shockwave, and a massive force explodes outward in every direction. The defensive barrier immediately blares a sharp warning alarm. The association president issues an immediate order, raise the barrier strength by 3 levels. He is stunned. This barrier was built with the most advanced magical technology available. A level 6 barrier should be completely immovable to an F-rank mage. He wonders quietly, how could a talent like this have stayed hidden for so long? On the arena floor, I catch Frost Warrior's movements from the corner of my eye. Her power is genuinely impressive. Even as she attacks, Frost Warrior warns me, focus too much on her, and Azure Warrior will be left exposed. I smile and turn her words back on her. She is underestimating us. By now, Thunder God has circled around above Azure Warrior. He intends to personally crush her dream of joining Seraphim. He charges up fast, fast, lightning crackling violently around his body. The moment it peaks, he drives the technique straight down at her. Supreme Thunder Art, a technique that doesn't just hurt, it destroys. Faced with that sudden onslaught, Azure Warrior does not flinch. She begins her incantation, and a blazing white light blooms from her fingertips. The next second, she activates Aurora's sacred shield, a radiant barrier of light taking shape in an instant. In his office, the association president shoots to his feet. That incantation, it is the spell of the goddess of barriers, a technique countless mages have tried and failed to fully reproduce. And yet Azure Warrior just used it perfectly. It is beyond belief. Thunder God's Supreme Thunder Art crashes into the Aurora sacred shield with full force, and the shield holds every bit of it. On the arena floor, both Thunder God and Frost Warrior are frozen in disbelief. An A-rank mage standing toe-to-toe against an S-rank technique, something like that should. Unthinkable. But the proof is right in front of them. Azure Warrior just did it. I stand steady and take in the scene before me. I think to myself, this was always going to happen. I turn to face them and announce, now it's our turn. A few hours earlier, I had taken Azure Warrior back to my place. The moment she stepped inside, she looked around curiously. She admitted with some awkwardness that this was her first time in a boy's room. When I said nothing and just kept looking at her, Azure Warrior's mind began to drift. She actually started wondering if I was about to confess something to her, her face going pink. She snapped out of it and shook her head sharply, forcing herself back to reality. With visible unease, she muttered that doing whatever this was right before a big fight seemed like strange timing. But I told her, she has inherited her great-grandmother's power, specifically, the legendary defensive magic. Azure Warrior fully snapped back to the moment, flushing at the thought of what she had just been imagining. She quickly asked, was that really true? She could hardly believe it, that she could carry the same power as her great-grandmother. I stood and explained, her gift was still dormant. That was why she never felt it. Normally it would take years to surface on its own, but I had a way to awaken it early. As I spoke, I stepped around behind her. I reached out slowly and placed my hand on her back. She went red instantly and stumbled backward, clearly misreading the situation. I apologized right away. Then I explained, I was only trying to clear her energy channels and draw out the dormant mana. After hearing that, she slowly relaxed and soon felt the shift happening inside her. I told her I had temporarily awakened the mana within her. She could now access most of the defensive spells, but I also warned her, this awakening was temporary. It would not last. To truly master this inherited power, she would have to train hard on her own. Hearing all of this, Azure Warrior's eyes turned resolute. She said she had already made up her mind. I checked the time. It was nearly right. I suggested we head to the duel now and give everyone a shock they wouldn't forget. The flashback ends. Just as expected, Azure Warrior's display has left both Thunder God and Frost Warrior speechless. The crowd above is equally stunned, every face frozen in disbelief. Everyone crowds around the association president, demanding answers. Someone points out that Azure Warrior was listed as a Seraphim candidate with no notable strengths. Others wonder if the president had already seen through her hidden potential. The president just keeps looking at me, his expression filled with quiet amazement. This person is something else entirely. I give the crowd a calm smile and gesture for them not to be surprised. Then I turn to Thunder God and Frost Warrior. Azure Warrior has proven her strength. Now it's my turn. I activate the 8-sword style and unleash the technique, Thunder God's Strike. Fierce lightning wrapped in razor-sharp sword energy drives straight toward Thunder God and Frost Warrior. Thunder God's eyes light up. He genuinely respects the power behind that move. Frost Warrior stays ice cold. She tells him to stop getting distracted and launches Ice Lance Barrage straight at us. Azure Warrior instantly raises her barrier shield and holds firm against the assault. Frost Warrior's brow furrows in surprise. She didn't expect a lower tier spell to stop her attack. Seeing Azure Warrior block Frost Warrior's strike, Thunder God moves immediately. He fires 2 thunder spears directly at her as a follow-up. I glance over and ask Azure Warrior if she can hold. She meets my eyes with steady resolve and nods without hesitation. She immediately deploys Mirror Shield, bracing for impact. Thunder God is caught off guard again. Refusing to back down, he sends wave after wave of lightning techniques her way. After all that, even Thunder God can't hold back his admiration. He openly admits, Azure Warrior is genuinely impressive. On her side, Azure Warrior is quietly pushing herself. She doesn't want to stay on the defensive, she wants to strike back. Even as she blocks, she works out how to turn each defense into an opening for a sword-based counterattack. If she can pull it off, she tells herself, she can hold her own against an S-rank mage, and together with me, truly win this duel. While Azure Warrior and Frost Warrior keep trading blows, I engage Thunder God again. I smile and tell him, Azure Warrior is putting on quite a show. Thunder God lets out a genuine laugh, his tone full of respect for her, but the laughter fades, and his eyes sharpen. He says it's time to get serious. The moment those words leave his mouth, he activates magnetic manipulation. An invisible force sweeps in, and both Azure Warrior and I are lifted off the ground. I think quickly, magnetic manipulation deals no damage. It's a support spell. What is he planning? Then Thunder God shouts across the arena to Frost Warrior. Now, Frost Warrior looks mildly annoyed but follows through without delay. She activates Ice Crystal Cage, splitting Azure Warrior and me apart. The moment I see it, I understand exactly what they have been planning. From the very beginning, they intended to break our formation apart. Thunder God grins and confirms it. They had this plan from the start. They want one-on-one matchups. Him against me, Frost Warrior against Azure Warrior. Each pair fighting their own battle, no interference. Thunder God also admits that Azure Warrior has grown fast, but he is still certain in terms of real combat experience the gap between them and us is overwhelming. In his view, talent alone, no matter how much we have, is not enough to beat S-rank mages. I push back immediately. Experience does not decide everything, and in a 2-on-2 want to fight. Synergy is a form of strength in itself. I am certain that Azure Warrior and I fighting side by side will bring out the best in both of us. We will win this duel and prove that Azure Warrior belongs in Seraphim. Azure Warrior nods with conviction, then leaps forward and drives her blade at Frost Warrior. Frost Warrior reacts instantly, shifting aside with fluid precision. In the same motion, she fires back with an ice technique, forcing Azure Warrior to retreat. Azure Warrior wastes no time and raises her barrier shield, holding off the first wave. Frost Warrior gives her no breathing room, pressing forward immediately with another strike. She hurls Ice Pillar Slam with devastating force, driving it straight at Azure Warrior. Azure Warrior's mind races, calculating her options in a split second. In an instant, she activates Radiant Shield and locks herself behind its protection. She holds, the Ice Pillar Slam stopped cold. Frost Warrior's brow tightens slightly. She clearly did not expect to be blocked twice in a row. Azure Warrior seizes the opening and layers both defensive and offensive attributes onto herself. With the buffs in place, she swings Pulse Blade and strikes back at Frost Warrior. After several exchanges, Frost Warrior has a read on Azure Warrior's fighting style. She knows that standard attacks will be blocked by Azure Warrior's defensive skills, and combining that with sword techniques does make her genuinely difficult to deal with. But Frost Warrior still isn't taking her seriously, because Azure Warrior's mana is nearly spent. Frost Warrior activates her wide-range technique, Blizzard Strike, and her presence explodes outward. A storm of ice shards and bone-freezing cold sweeps toward Azure Warrior from all directions. Azure Warrior senses the lethal danger and doesn't allow herself even a moment of carelessness. She deploys her strongest defense, Aurora Sacred Shield, wrapping herself in it completely. Only through the Aurora Sacred Shield's incredible defensive power does she manage to survive the assault. Azure Warrior is genuinely shaken by Frost Warrior's power. The awe hits her like a wave. This is the first time she has ever truly felt the crushing pressure of an S-rank mage. She threw everything she had into her attack, and it was reversed in an instant. Frost Warrior has an endless arsenal of killing moves. Azure Warrior doesn't have a single reliable finisher. In that moment, she loses her footing, cornered and unsure of her next move. Frost Warrior locks her gaze on Azure Warrior and tells her coldly, "Give up now while you still can." She has seen enough to know. Azure Warrior's power was rushed, a last-minute awakening. Her defense won't hold much longer, and even with strong defense, without a move that can actually win, there is no path to victory. She then asks directly, why keep pushing this hard? What is she even fighting for? Azure Warrior begins to speak, her voice quiet. She admits she once thought about giving up. As a descendant of the four great heroes, she carried the weight of everyone's expectations, only to plateau at A rank. No matter how hard she trained every single day, she saw no breakthrough. There was a time she felt truly lost, until she saw me, stepping forward alone, standing against the monster threat for everyone's sake. In that moment, she made her decision. Even if she isn't strong enough right now, she will become strong, for the people she wants to protect. And so this time, she refuses to give up. Frost Warrior responds with a cold scoff. She finds the sentiment naive. Effort alone cannot change the future. Before the words have even faded, Frost Warrior strikes again. Piercing cold seizes the air and locks the space around Azure Warrior in place. Azure Warrior tries to gather her mana and push back, but her body refuses to move. Frost Warrior's voice drops even colder. She states it plainly, Azure Warrior will not take another step forward. The next second, Absolute Zero is unleashed. A killing cold swallows everything around it and charges toward Azure Warrior without mercy. Frost Warrior allows herself the smallest smile. She asks, this is the end. Can Azure Warrior really survive it?